one of the points that was quite surprising for me from doing all this research and getting all this data was that a lot of real estate marketplaces around the world are still not really owned by what I would call specialist real estate vertical operators. There's still a lot of classifieds operators. There's still a lot of like banks and software companies and kind of random companies that own real estate portals. Is that something that you see changing over time? Do you think we'll maybe get a higher percentage of real estate vertical specialists over time?
I think there's sort of a couple of things at play here. One is the game over the last 20 years has gone from being the real estate marketplaces being sort of very ancillary businesses, very cheap to run, cheap to operate, and honestly not perceived as being worth much. In fact, I remember when News Corp in Australia, and I was there, and I went to the CFO and said, "Hey, look, we're buying realestate.com.au." There's only a small check he was writing, 2.25 million. And he said it's not a real business. Today, these not real businesses are worth billions of dollars. So I think you are going to continue to see a split between specialist operators, the Zillows of the world, who are very much focused, maybe listed, high value, CoStar, for example. You will have classified operators who are multi-vertical, the Aviv Group, as an example, or OLX and so on, right? Horizontals who then have also these vertical niches, and you will have publishers like Ringier, for example, that mix of old world and new world. So I don't actually see that really changing, except that as marketplaces in various countries become more profitable, prove out their model, you're going to see more of the rich coming in and buying them, and thus growing them. So if you have money today, you can shop around and buy the marketplace, the real estate marketplace that makes most sense for you.
Yeah, the other thing looking at this, and again, this maybe wasn't a surprise because the data was built out over 3 years, but nearly 900 active real estate marketplaces out there. And those are just the ones that we know about. It seems like a huge number. They can't all be profitable, right? And they can't all last. What's your take on that?
So absolutely, it's a lot out there, but I'm sort of not surprised because when we were at the Matula Group and we had thousands of sources of real estate classifieds coming in. So there are a lot of players, a lot of niche players, things like Snow Only, for example, who are really just operating in one area around ski resorts. So yeah. I think you're getting more fragmentation of the market, which leads to the high number. It's going to be very hard for clearly 900 to be profitable. My guess is there are a handful, less than 50, who are large real businesses, greater than 50 million revenues, and operating at really good margins. I think there's probably a lot that are operating at that sub 10 million revenue level, break even, probably losing money, spending shareholders' money to grow their businesses in those markets, and that 900, but the 900 will probably stay the same, but people will drop out, new ones will enter, they'll drop out, they'll enter, they'll drop out and enter as people get their minds around it. What's also interesting is that the models will be changing in many of these businesses from a classifieds advertising model to a transaction-based model.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I imagine probably the pie chart won't change too much, but then I might have to define a bit more clearer what gets included in my 900 and what doesn't. But yeah, we'll move on. Okay, on the next slide here. So what was interesting, there were several interesting points from this, but what was really interesting was that the more mature the market, the fewer general classifieds players there are out there. And this is a breakdown by region, but it's also, when we break it down just by mature and developing markets, you can definitely see there's a big difference when it comes to who owns real estate portals. Interesting for me as well that the venture capital seems to be kind of, so in developing markets, slightly more than in mature markets. So the venture capital out there is optimistic, let's say, about developing markets. And I know that's something you have experience with.
Yeah. So when I look at this, first of all, the specialist operators, pretty much the same, 35-ish% in each market. Clearly, the classified operators in developing markets, That's interesting, because if you think about classifieds in developing markets, it's quite hard to extract money from advertisers. So my hypothesis is a lot of those classified operators are really probably running a transaction-based model on the back end, rather than a straight traditional pay-to-list or pay-for-performance model on the front end. I mean, clearly the publisher and the media groups, I mean, the REAs, the Ringiers of the world, those large publishers are clearly in mature markets. They've got access to a lot of money. They're buying up profitable players like the REAs of the world, etc. And so it makes sense that they are a large owner, whereas in the smaller markets, I think the publishers have almost disappeared when you think about it. And I think that's probably more at play there. And then the other big difference here is this other group. And I think other here probably includes banks, includes I don't know what's in there, right?
Yeah, no, it was like banks, software companies, just there's all kinds of strange companies out there that own real estate portals. But the other big thing from this is, I mean, I wasn't a surprise, I kind of knew, but it's kind of, I guess, depressing if you're a real estate agent that there are only about 16 portals out there that are owned or have a major stakeholder that is an agent or an industry association. It really does feel that they kind of missed the boat to own the shop window.
Oh yeah, that ship sailed about 20 years ago, to be honest. They all had the chance to participate. They I think in many ways they either didn't understand, or when they did put it together, they put it together more as a club rather than as a fully operating business, and they sacrificed what you needed to do, which was raise serious money to build a brand, and instead ended up, being missing the boat in the whole process.
Yeah. This next slide is, we won't spend too long on it, but basically I found it very interesting that there's a company out there that owns 38 real estate verticals, and that's not including the aggregators that they own, by the way. They probably own close to 100 if we include those. It's interesting to me that you kind of, as one of these big portal operating companies, you tend to kind of copy and paste what you do, but it's also very difficult to like take a very successful business and put it over a border. It tends to be that they buy, right? And again, about this.
Yes. So having been there, done that, and been involved in a number of transactions to buy portals. In fact, I look at Life or Connect, and I would think the majority of those portals actually came either via the acquisition of the Mature Group, which is like Dot Property or Co, or the acquisition of Lamudi, I think they purchased, and something else which I can't remember at the moment. The interesting cut around this would be to see how many of those portals or marketplaces were operating in mature markets versus developed or emerging markets. And I think what you find is a funnel. Okay, as the market matures, which is probably going down this list, you get more players. The players have less businesses. CoStar probably being the exception because they own a lot of businesses, but within the mature market of the US. But if you were looking at something like Zillow, right? They operate 2 or 3 or 4 portals. It'd be a small number in that, but a lot of revenue. Rightmove, great example, operates 1 portal, super profitable, so on. Yeah. So I think the reason you have a lot of high number of players at the top is that you've got a high number of small revenue players, right? Yeah. And you're trying to roll consistent models across there and trying to operate multi-market off one platform and try to run it as an EBITDA profitable business.
This slide here has kind of killed my pet theory that I had for a long time. My pet theory was that the specialist real estate vertical operators, like the real specialist businesses, are more likely to be market leaders. It turns out it's not the case. Now, obviously, there's a bit of a split when so this data here, if we split it into mature markets and developing markets, it is a bit different. And the percentage of specialist real estate vertical operators that are market leaders does go up, but there doesn't seem to be a huge correlation in terms of the type of owner and whether they're a market leader or not. I was surprised by this.
Yeah, at best, you've got a classified operator owning a quarter a quarter of the portals owned by classified operators are market leaders. Okay, which means 3/4 aren't. But that's really not a lot different to an industry or industry association, or even the venture capitalists are sitting at 90% are not market leaders. They're attackers in markets. So I clearly there's not a strong correlation between the specialist operators. Now there's other dimensions you want to put to this, right? Revenues would be a very good dimension to put here, because you'd get a good feeling for the classified operators may only have 25% of their ownership is market leaders, but there's 3 billion of revenues, okay, versus I don't know, e-commerce players, and it might be 200 million, I don't know, right? So there's a dimension of size in this that we're missing, and I know it's very hard to pull together.
I mean, if these companies were to give me their revenue, it would be an excellent graph. I'd love to make it, but it depends on people giving you the numbers, I suppose. Yes. This was kind of sparked by a question that I asked in my presentation at Property Portal Watch in Bangkok, which was, is there a relationship between having a native owner or shareholder or stakeholder, I should say, or like a foreign one? Now, this is what it looks like globally. So we can see that it's kind of more towards foreign ownership being, a factor in whether you're a market leader or not. And this on the next slide is what it looks like for developing markets. So as we can see, a lot more foreign ownership and a slightly increased incidence of market leadership for those that are foreign owned. Again, not too surprising, I would have thought. No,
I think at the end of the day, there's two issues around this, right? One is there are a lot of, you've got 900 portals you're covering. They can't all be market leaders by definition. So you're always going to have these long tails of red or pink in this instance. So the most important thing is the percentage difference. If you can go back to the previous slide for a second, what you've got here is a 50% increase. So looking at the relative percentages rather than the absolute percentages, the foreign ownership is 50% higher, whereas in the developing markets, it's about 25% higher, maybe 30% higher in that 30% higher, I guess is what it is in that game. I think two things are happening here. One is if you're a market leader and you're going to be acquired, there's a good chance a foreigner will come in and buy your business, okay? Because they've got the money to spend on it, is the way I'd be interpreting this. So, and if you're not a market leader, okay, it's going to be very hard to get foreigners to buy you.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's it, Simon. Thanks for talking to us. I just wanted to point out that this report and all reports that we do like this are always absolutely free for our subscribers. All you got to do is subscribe to our mailing list and you get this absolutely free. You can even download the data from it. We don't mind. We're open source like that.
Ed, thank you for this. I love the insight that you bring to this, and to crawl your way through about 900 of these portals is a fantastic effort, and the insight that you're helping bring to the industry is I think super valuable. So thank you very much, and thank you for sharing this information.